just money or not.
It is communication, especially when parents feel involved.
Good evening. I'd like to call this Three Rivers Board of Education meeting to order on Tuesday, October 12th. Here to track, if we could please stand for the pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Mrs. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Mr. McDonald,
Here.
Dr. Stafford,
Here.
Mrs. Snyder. Here.
First, we have the approval of and dispense with the reading of the minutes from September 7th, which was a special meeting, and September 14th and September 28th, which were regular monthly meetings.
I'll make a motion that we approve and dispense with the reading of the minutes for the September 7th, 14th, and 28th meetings.
I'll second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Evans,
Here, or yes?
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Dr. Stafford,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Okay, first we'll start with our committee reports. We have the academic and curriculum with Mr. McDonald.
Yes. We actually met today. The participants were Joan Stidham, the Director of Teaching and Learning, Megan Ribbett, the Director of Student Services. We had Mark Smiley in attendance. And today we discussed the CCP update to include the Ohio transfer model. And what this is it's a new certificate program that would help students who are taking CCP classes get their gen ed requirements done for college. So when you go, I went to Miami University, we call it the Miami Plan. It's the general courses that you would have to take in order to get your degree, your bachelor's degree. So this is kind of a set of classes that would be tailored to meet those requirements. So when you went to college, you had some of those done or all of them done if you went through this full system. It lists the classes. You can do it through CCP classes that we would have here at Taylor, and you could do them through Cincinnati State or another college that would have the same classes that could meet those requirements. So we're looking into how to offer that here. It's not done. It's just a process. So we would have to go through that, but the administration is looking into that now. We may have to add a class or two that we would proctor, but would use the materials from, say, Cincinnati State. One would be like a music class, and there was another class that we would have to do to fully offer this. But it's something we're looking into, and it seems pretty exciting. So we'll keep you up to date on that. We did talk about the salutatorian, valedictorian proposal that we were talking about, replacing it with another Greek system. They're going to have a meeting later this month with some 7th grade parents because they were talking about phasing it in over many years so that it wouldn't affect current students. So they're going forward with meetings to kind of talk about that with parents and see what their opinions are. Let's see, we have a new, we've got some academic recognition that we're trying to do in light of the announcement at our last meeting that we had some semifinalists and commended students this year. We wanted to figure out a way, if you go out in the hallways, you see all of these sports accomplishments that we have, and it's great that we celebrate those, but we really don't have a lot of academic recognition in our hallways. And this kind of brought up some thoughts about how do we recognize some of the academic achievements of our students. And so they're beginning to think about some of those ideas about what kind of recognition that we could do for those students who have things like becoming commended students and semifinalists, merit semifinalists, and other things that we accomplish. Let's see here. We have, we were talking about space and different programs that we have and the need after our walkthrough. I think the whole board got to see that We are busting at the seams with the usage of the building. We do act as a raw satellite, and that room, the students in that room are dwindling. There are only, I think, 3 students left. So the question is how to use that space, to keep that space as it is, to use it for another purpose. We've been talking to the parents, and obviously there's some strong feelings about how that space is used, keeping it here, moving it. No decisions have been made, but we do have to determine the priority for our space because we could use another room for preschool and other purposes. There are probably 5 or 10 different reasons we could use different rooms, but we talked a little bit about that. And those are the highlights, but they are going to get a new dump of testing data from last year for district-wide so that we can compare it to other districts. They're going to be looking at that in the next few weeks to determine learning loss. And I believe that's just about it. Are there any questions about that?
I have a question and a comment. For the CCP set of courses, is that something that we're constructing on our own in-house, or are we partnering with someone for that?
We're partnering. The information I have is with Cincinnati State.
Okay. And then I just wanted to mention the Val-Sal meeting that was mentioned. Out of that is next Tuesday, the 19th at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
And that is for 7th grade parents, but I just wanted to make that plug since we were talking.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. McDonald. We have board policies with Mrs. Miller and Dr. Alt. We don't have any to report, do we? Or
Not at this time, but they are coming.
yay, policy. Okay, building and grounds with Mr. Evans.
As was mentioned, we had the special meeting back on September 7th. That was when we toured the CT Young building as well as this track, the main facility here. As was also mentioned, we quickly realized that we're really using all the space that we have available in this building, and quite a bit of what's in CT Young as well. We were going to have a follow-up tour today. We did not have time to get through the athletic facilities. That includes the wrestling building, the stadium, both stadiums actually. But we'll try to reschedule that hopefully here for some point here in the next month or so before it gets too cold. Other things in terms of buildings and grounds, we interviewed for a facility supervisor. You'll see later on Dr. Alt's report that we'll be asked to approve that contract. I participated in those interviews with Tom Olson, and there were several others as well. And I think we picked a really good candidate, and looking forward to getting that spot filled here in next week. That's it.
I was very impressed on how they utilized in all the closet space, I guess, and made classes and different offices and stuff like that out of them. So good job to the staff that did all that.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Evans, for your work on the facilities hiring committee. That's additional work that sometimes board members don't necessarily participate in, so thank you for volunteering to do that. Okay, we got finance with Mrs. Snyder.
We have not met. I need to get with Alan and put a schedule together for this year. Do that very soon.
All right, then we will move into the superintendent's report with Dr. Alt.
Thank you, Dr. Stafford. I'd like to block items A through P this evening. Under the area of personnel, item A is the resignation letter from Dina Cross Cook, effective October 4th. Item B is the resignation from John Connerman, an instructional aide, effective October 8th. Item C is the resignation letter from Frank Shout, a bus driver, effective October 21st. Item D, I reluctantly recommend the acceptance of the retirement letter from Alice Gunler, our treasurer, effective July 1st, 2022. Item E is a 2-year administrative contract for Michael Nye, Supervisor of Facilities and Operations, effective tomorrow, October 13th through July 31st, pending background checks. I do want to thank Mr. Evans for his help in selecting Mr. Nye. We think he'll be a great addition to our staff. Item F is revised guaranteed hours for Sarah Baldrick, a bus driver, from 6 hours to 4 hours daily, effective October 13th through the rest of the school year. Item G is a non-teaching contract for Sarah Baldrick as a cook 3, effective October 13th through the end of the school year at 3.5 hours daily. So we appreciate Sarah helping us out. We mentioned the shortage in our food service program. She is stepping up, helping out where needed. We appreciate it very much. Item H, non-teaching contract for Jill Scalia as a cook 2, effective October 13th through the rest of the school year, pending background check. That's a 7-hour-a-day job at step 4. Item I is a non-teaching contract for Samantha Sexton as a cook 2, effective October 18th through June 30th, pending background checks. And again, that's a 7-hour daily job at step 2. Item J is Jeanette Baldrick as a substitute cook for the 21-22 school year. Item K is Bradley Felix as a non-CDL substitute van driver, effective October 13th through the rest of the school year, pending background checks, drug and alcohol testing, and completion of training at $17.85 per hour. Item L, recommendation for Linda Hinman as a non-CDL bus driver in training, effective October 13th through the rest of the school year, pending background checks, drug and alcohol testing, and completion of training. Under operational, item L is for the board to enter into an agreement or contract with the Butler County Educational Service Center and our Three Rivers Board of Education for treasurer recruitment. Item N is actually a revision, acceptance of the revision of our emergency operation plan for the 21-22 school year. We had some personnel updates that we needed to make sure that we included in our annual revision of that plan. And then under athletics, item O, athletic supplemental contracts for the following individuals as listed for the 21-22 school year, pending background checks and proper certification. And the rate of pay is subject to change upon negotiated collective bargaining agreement. And you will see those individuals listed on your agenda. And then item P is the resignation letter from Johnny Connerman as the junior high site coordinator, effective October 12th. That is items A through P. Are there any questions?
No questions, just a couple comments. I know we have, some of the resignation letters that we're about to approve. I just want to say thanks for the time that they spent here. I know Mr. Connerman was well received by my kids, and I know that they loved when Frank substituted and drove the bus, so they will be greatly missed. And then, of course, Mrs. Gunler, I know we have you until July 1, and I appreciate that the heads up and you giving us the opportunity to work to find your replacement, which you will be greatly, greatly missed. As we transition to a new treasurer, you have done so much for Three Rivers, and I am very, very grateful for my time that I've been able to work as a board member with you as a treasurer by my side. So thank you for that. But with that, I will make a motion that we approve items A through P as presented.
I'll second.
Roll, please.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Dr. Stafford,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes,
Mr. Evans.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move into the treasurer's report. Mrs. Gunler.
Thank you, Dr. Stafford. I do have a couple comments. One of the things you'll see on my list tonight is a then and now, and as you are well aware, a then and now is an invoice that was issued prior to a PO being issued. This was not really the fault of anybody. It was really through the transitioning of a position at the high school, somebody leaving, somebody new coming in. It's a 3-year agreement with Naviance, and Naviance is for our college prep and our SAT things that the counselors use. So it's a year 2 out of 3, and it just happened to fall through the cracks with the transitions of positions in the summer. So the other thing I wanted to let you know is American Fidelity will be in our staff meetings tomorrow. We are shifting our flexible spending account from custom design benefits to American Fidelity. This is another way that I'm moving in that direction because currently custom design benefit charges us to manage our FSA account. American Fidelity does not. And also with our partnership with them, they will be able to support our employees in areas that we cannot support because 1, we don't have the manpower, but 2, they can support them in any of their questions about any of their benefits. Also, they can support them in our online benefits, which we call Business Solver. Everything's done online, but they now can reach out. We actually have an account manager here who lives in our community, and he's also, and has children that attend Three Rivers, and he will be able to assist our staff in that. And lastly, I have the 5-year forecast. Been working on that. I will be presenting that at our next board meeting on October the 26th. You'll see that it looks very erratic, only because of the funding that we've been having with ESSER. I've been able to remove some of our general funding into the ESSER money to free up some of the pressure that we have right now in the spending of general fund. So you'll see it go up and down because ESSER 2, we're using funding this year for that. ESSER 3, we're going to use for a lot of our expenses for next year. So you'll kind of see it erratic, but I'll be able to step you through and to make it even more complicated this year, we have a new state funding that's been put in place and a lot of changes have been taking place with that. And it's a 2-year phase in, but they're going to start it this year. So with that, I would like to block A and B unless anybody has any questions.
I'll make a motion that we approve items A and B as presented in the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
Roll please.
Dr. Stafford,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes,
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
It looks like we have one announcement.
Actually have 3, but we'll start with the one that seems most appropriate for this evening. In lieu of Mrs. Gunler's notice of retirement, I'm pleased to tell you that I received recently from the government finance officers out of Chicago, and I'll just read you the letter. Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to Three Rivers Local School District for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of government accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. And it is my understanding that we have never received this award before, so I congratulate our board, Mrs. Gundler, and the staff that she has in the business office. They are phenomenal, so thank you very much.
I do want to add, though, that it takes everybody, not just myself or my department, but the entire staff. It takes teamwork to make these kinds of things happen. As you know, since I've been here, we've gotten the Auditor of the State Award, and again, it's collaborative, but it's with everybody. It takes the entire team, and I do want to personally thank everyone, the staff and the board, and thank you so much.
Thank you. One other announcement. The last board meeting, we talked about, we had 2 national merit semifinalists at our high school, which was impressive because we discussed that they had scored in the top 1% in the nation among students and their peers. And we're glad to add 2 more commended, National Merit Commended students, which is just a great honor too. That's the top 2% in the nation. So congratulations to Brandon McCullum and Charlie Lang. We were able to have a celebratory breakfast last week with the parents and counselors, and it was very much deserved. And we plan to also highlight them at that football game this Friday. So 4 in this class is amazing. We're very proud of them.
Great.
And they're great young men and great ambassadors for the school. So well-rounded, doing well in all facets of their school career. So congratulations to them.
Any other announcements? Okay, we are at hearing of the public. We have one. Just one, I think. So Three Rivers Local School District welcomes discussion, comments, and ideas to grow the district. However, complaints about public school employees should be made through the procedure outlined in board policy. First. Give me 1 second. Just set up. This is like, if you'll bring me the cards. If you will, just say your name and state your address, please.
Starlin Heimer, 8912 Buffalo Ridge Road, 45002.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
I want to talk about what we are learning in social studies. Right now we are learning about ancient Greece, then Rome. The only thing I know about my country and my state are what my parents have taught me at home. I find it ridiculous that we are learning about other cultures and countries before my own. How can I keep up with what's going on if I don't even know the history of my country? I understand the importance of learning about other countries and cultures, but we're living in a very important turning point in our history. Considering the current state of our country battling the pandemic and auditing the presidential election, doesn't it make sense to teach students of all grades and ages about what it means to be an American? We're supposed to be learning about ancient Greece and Rome in 7th grade, right? Then how come we watch the fake news media? If we have time to watch CNN 10, I think you can make time to include some American history. This was my decision to speak today. I watched my mom and her friends stand up for her freedom. I hear their discussions about how divided and confused our country is. They motivate others to get involved, and now I want to. You might think that I'm just a kid, but that's not true. I'm an American. I'm an American girl who loves my freedom, and I'm ready to be a leader.
Well, first of all, not very many kids can stand up at a board meeting and do as well as you did. So kudos to you for doing that. I always appreciate students that are willing to come up here and just state your beliefs and your opinions. Students should absolutely have a voice in everything we're doing here. So kudos to you. The message has been heard. So thank you for that. Okay, next. Again, just state your name and address.
Angela Heimer, 8912 Buffalo Ridge. I have 2 subjects I wanted to address tonight. The first one is, how do you pronounce it? Miss Firma. The first week of school, my daughter was sent home with papers from her social studies class. It was labeled Nasirma. It tells you about a culture of people that were studied in North America, and it asks you to examine their culture. It tells you about a medicine man they go to, rituals they perform, and it mentions magic, and their culture is just, it seems so bizarre and really, really weird. So if you take Nasirma, the way it's spelled, and turn it around, it's America spelled backwards, which any other time, I would say it was appropriate to hand something out like that. But again, with the time our country is in and what we're facing and the American culture feeling threatened that American rights are being taken from us, I felt that it was inappropriate to hand that out, given that we're in this time. I don't think it belongs in the curriculum, not only because of the sensitivity in our subject in our country, but because of the content. So if you pay closer to attention to it, it's a rhetoric used to make our culture not only seem bizarre, but extreme. And it even mentions that. It displays our culture more odd than it should have, and it's done purposely. I'm sure that Miner's intended audience wasn't for kids because it was published in an edition of American Anthropologist in 1956. So why is this being presented as material for kids who don't have an education, a high school education completed? They're not even in college, so they don't have the same comprehension level as an adult would in the subject. Miner states that Nasirmas have a ritual of putting hog hairs into their mouth. I don't think he intended for this excerpt to be extreme, but then you think about it, nylon toothbrushes were created in 1938. That was well before this was published in 1956. That's pushing the boundaries. And then he labels the Nasirma culture as extreme. A direct quote, practices of Nasirma are so unusually strange that it seems useful to describe them as an example of the extremes of human behavior. There is a similarity to our current frame of mind with politicians currently labeling parents and Americans as extremists who just want to defend their liberties and their freedoms. Another quote, our review of the ritual life of the Nasirma has certainly shown them to be a people who believe a great deal in magic, and it's hard to understand how they've managed to survive so long. That was another harmful quote in there to me, because once they tell the kids that this is about America, the last time I checked, we're far from a third world country. We're number one in advancement in our military. We're number two in high-tech advance. We're number 4 in our healthcare innovation. But when it comes to education, we take a step down to number 11. I wonder why that is. It's not anybody's individual fault, but it seems we keep straying farther and farther away in the education department. And as a parent, I don't like to see that. I want the best for my daughter. I had the best, and my parents fought for me to further my education, and that's what I'm doing. So the purpose of his use of terminology is repeating words like ritual, magic, and potions. That's a blatant overkill. That is the main perception that he displays about this culture. If you ask any kids and you mention the words ritual, magic, and potion, I guarantee you, if you ask them what they think of when you say those words, they relate it to witchcraft. I asked those two right there. They agreed, and I didn't tell them what it was about. I just said those 3 words, and they said evil, witchcraft, Halloween. So the majority of Americans now understand, me being one of them, that there's abuse state, there's a swamp. They might participate in magic. They might do that stuff. But to label the rest of Americans as partaking in that, I don't think we should be categorized in that subject matter. And this was handed out to our students this year. Not only does he describe our culture as being involved in pagan practices like witchcraft, he implies that we're masochists. Another direct quote is, such traditions show that the Nasirma may value and even enjoy bodily pain. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of people I know as Americans don't enjoy going to the dentist. Most of them are actually afraid of it. So again, he is caught intentionally misleading the audience. And it'd be easy to brush this off. It seems so simple. Brush it under the rug, ignore this. It's just a satire, paperwork handed out. But in my opinion, that's part of the reason we are where we're at today, with the confusion and number 1 in education, and we're just brushing it off. These small issues seem simple on the surface, but if you look farther into the context, that's part of why we're in the mess we're in today. again, that's my opinion, it's not a fact, but I think a lot of people would strongly agree with me. Simple little things like this shouldn't be in their curriculum. Because if you look farther, the part that upset me the most was on the back of the sheet, they have questions. All 1 through 5 were fine. Number 6 asks specifically, what are your general feelings about the Nasirma civilization? Would you like to live in that society? And please explain your answer. When I realized that Nasirma was American spelled backwards, and I saw my daughter's response was, they're stupid and I hate their society, I would never want to live like them. And notice that I've raised her to be proud to be an American, to fight for her freedoms and her rights, and to see that she wrote that about her culture unknowingly because she was hoodwinked into that. I wasn't happy. So that's something I'd like to address, that speak to the teacher. It might not be malicious, but the thing is that small things like that do affect their mind and how they think about being an American, even though she didn't know it was about America in the first place. It made her think harder about it, but then she, being a critical thinker, defended, okay, we don't do this, we don't do this, we don't do this, but other kids don't. They go off of what they're taught because they trust the teachers, they trust the education to train them in the right way. I didn't agree with that worksheet, so I'd like that to be addressed on an issue maybe you guys can vote on or something, but I don't like that in the curriculum. My second thing is the mask on the bus.
Can I just interrupt for just 1 second? I'd like to make a motion to give her 3 additional minutes to discuss her second concern.
I agree.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I read that in college.
That was my whole thing for a child. They're not going to have the understanding of that like we would. So my second thing is masks on the bus. I was wondering, what mandate are you following for the masks on the bus? Who exactly mandated it? Are you following the federal mandate? Okay, so all of the guidelines, the federal guidelines, are they being followed in the school with the 6 feet exactly? Or is it just on the bus that we're following that? Okay, so I've done some research. I don't know if you noticed. Those are just a few of my binders I brought with me. I'm not against you guys. I love this school district. I've had very few problems. My problem is more with the government making mandates, not with you guys. But I want to address this. Are you guys aware of the healthcare amendment issue 3 from 2011 that was approved for Ohio?
I've done a lot of personal research on this issue. There's a federal transportation law that we've been given legal advice on, that it's been mandated. I'm not a mask person myself, so I was not happy with the information, but there is a federal statute that provides for transportation. We're mandated to have the masks, and that's what the law firm that represents us is told us.
That's what I understood as well, but anytime that the government tries to supersede something within the Ohio Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights in general, the Constitution, it can't hold up. So what I was able to find is the healthcare amendment issue 3 for Ohio in 2011, as well as many other states. It exempts the residents of Ohio from any national healthcare mandates. So it goes farther to say that, which would stop any state law or national law from forcing persons, employees, employers, or healthcare providers from participating in a healthcare system. It was approved in 2011. It had amendments made up until then, but this was the finalization of it. On top of that, there are a minimum of 5 school districts in Ohio currently who have bypassed the mask on the bus mandate, and no legal action has been taken against them. They've left the decision up to the parents and the children. If they feel like they need to protect themselves with the mask, they're more than welcome to do so, but they don't make it a mandate. So my question is, if I'm able to research this farther and we're able to push on this, is that something you guys would be willing to remove? Because I believe there are ways around this. There are loopholes because the Ohio Bill of Rights has many in them.
Well, I think you always have the ability to email the superintendent, the board, with any information that you want us to be aware of. And we always pay attention to things that you send us, so
Okay.
feel free to always send us anything you want.
So the superintendent would be the one that makes the decision if we find the right information to fight this?
It would depend. If it's a board policy, if it would need to be a board policy, it'd be the board. If it's not necessary to be a board policy, then the superintendent, the administration would make the decision.
So is it a board policy for the mask on the bus? No.
It depends on the reasoning. I mean, federal law right now seems to dictate that we have masks on buses. So that would, if the board wanted to not obey federal law, I think the board would have to take an action on that.
And I believe the mandate is through the Public Department of Transportation,
That's right.
not the Health Department. Right.
Okay, so with it being through the Department of the Transportation, another thing around that is that it says if you're a private entity, so you're operating outside of the public works, and of course, this is a public school, but it's considered in a business, its own private entity, that they do not have to abide by the federal regulations coming in. That's another thing I'm working on researching right now. I'm not a lawyer. I took a little bit of law school. I never finished. But my daughter doesn't ride the bus because there's a mask mandate. Last year when they required the masks, I homeschooled her, and I'm not great at teaching, so that was the biggest fight of my life, but we made it through. So I have her starting school Wednesday, and she has to ride the bus and wear a mask, and there's so many tests coming out proving that these masks are harming people. So what about a religious exemption? Would that be something that we could, per individual student, be able to present as an option as to not wearing a mask?
It's not something that we would talk about at a board meeting. I think you'd have to contact the administration and talk about that individually.
And the superintendent is who I would speak to on that?
After all.
If you want afterwards, I'll give you my contact.
Absolutely, I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any old business? New business? Okay, we do have a need for executive session. The ORC 121.22 permits discussion in executive session for specific matters required to be kept confidential by state law or state statute. Our two items are employment of public personnel and the discussion of collective bargaining negotiations. I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for those two items.
I'll second.
Roll please.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Dr. Stafford?
Yes.
We don't plan on this is after executive session.